Thank you. I enjoyed all three of them. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, as a Northern Catholic, working class, once upon a time ginger young man, it's generally my lot in life to be the grit in the oyster. So that's what I will try to do for you today, and I'm going to come at things a little bit differently. I will state my case plainly that no, schools can't fix broken Britain. And it is unrealistic to ask them to do so. I thought the programme notes were excellent in identifying the problems. Broadly speaking, we might say that they are propping up a creaking social welfare state in the midst of huge demographic change. They include having to kind of instigate some sort of moral renewal and fix all the behavioural and attitude problems of all those who attend their schools and their parents too. And finally, provide therapeutic intervention for all of those when it goes wrong as well. It seems unfair, it seems unreasonable, and I don't think schools have the tools to do it for three main reasons. Firstly, I think it's a liberal fantasy, if I'm honest with you, that the education is this kind of Odyssean journey where we all come to some sort of enlightenment, where we are freed from the chains of ignorance, and when we do reach a certain level of intellectual aptitude, we will become these nice, pleasant citizens, and of course agree with those in charge, because what else could an educated mind think? Wrong. Next, schools are downstream of culture, they're not upstream. Schools broadly reflect the prestige faith, the prestige views and opinions of those who are in the political and cultural elite of our society. They don't generate culture. And unless you think the answer is more of those prestige views of the political and cultural elites of society, then I would say schools don't have it within them on their own to fix society. And finally, there's already a culture clash in our schools, broadly, between those who work in them and those who attend them, between an educated grad class who, generally speaking, we speak with a broad brush here, but hold a certain set of prestige views, and quite often a load of people who attend the school who don't. And this came out really clearly following Brexit. I remember there were some head teachers really getting upset about the Brexit vote and making all sorts of terrible claims about the intellectual and moral rectitude of those voters. And I was thinking, maybe 70% of your parents in this school voted that way. Is that the road you want to go down? So no, I don't think schools can do it, and I don't think they've got the tools to do it, and I think it's unfair to ask. Now, why is this? That's the question. To use Chesterton's aphorism, it's a living thing that stands against the tide, and a dead thing merely floats with it. If I'm going to put things very, very bluntly, I don't think the secular liberal state has been able to create a firm ground of values or vision for schools to be able to do this work. Ultimately, it has tried, certainly, British values, citizenship, civics, PSHE, all of it, the endless assemblies I've sat through and delivered, hasn't worked. And so I would argue that, therefore, something else is needed. Something else is needed that gives us a way of centering the discussion on what is shared, not what makes us different. Now, if that was the grit, hopefully here's the pearl. I think, and I would say this, it's my job, and this is being recorded, so I better say it, that our Catholic schools give this a good go. Oh, thank you. I would argue that for all that gloom, that there is gloom about these prospects, that there is potentially a way of addressing each of these issues, and it comes with looking at things a little bit differently. If your analysis of the problem is solely material, your answer will always think we need more provision, we need more resources, we need more staff, we need more facilities, and it will never end. I promise you it will never end. Secondly, if you think the answer is completely functional, it will be we need better curriculum. We just need to, you'll go around in that same circle of citizenship and civics and all of the rest of it that's happened before, and we won't get anywhere. I would argue that the reset that's required is away from the material and the functional, and to address the core issue, which in my opinion is a sense of alienation and disenchantment of a wide swath of society, and especially our young. They feel disenchanted with the world around them. They feel alienated from its expression. Now, if we bring this new lens in, I would argue our schools offer a way, possibly a way, of getting back toward that sense of something shared. Even just culturally, I would wager that if you have had an education in a faith school and you have had effective RE and scripture and theology, then your visit to the National Museum will prove more fruitful than another child who has not been given that privilege. It is a way to speak to the inheritance we have received, to the people who came before us, and hopefully to the kind of society we want to make in future. But it's not just that, because if you just leave it there, there's a danger that you just recreate that functionalism, but in a different way. Because what I would also say is, whereas that might be the horizontal movement of what we want to do, there is a vertical too. And that idea, that notion of re-engagement, of re-enchanting, of taking away the alienation, also includes the theodrama of the thing. It points upwards too. It wraps it in a sense of the deeply symbolic, in a sense of ritual, of liturgy, of the mysterious, of sacrifice, and it binds us all one to another in a common project. Now, of course, not everybody might opt in, but it breaks my heart that not everybody's offered it, because it seems to me that that should be the absolute minimum that every child in this country is given, some sense of who we are and their part within it. Might call it induction. So, what does this mean? Well, you know, in our sector, we've always seen this as a work of service. We use imagery about why we have schools, which very much leans on biblical ideas of things like the parable of the mustard seed, or the city on the hill, or the yeast and salt, or the streams of living water. In other words, this idea that by preserving something that can point both outwards and upwards, we give people a chance to be re-enchanted, to not feel too oppressed by that alienation. Might say that we reach parts of the imagination, maybe parts of the soul, that others would struggle to reach. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen many a fine wall display in a school with lots of different abstract nouns of respect and dignity and attitude and kindness. I don't know what they mean. So, can we fix it? That was the question, and I said no. But. I'm going to put out a little shout out for our little part of the garden, because I would say we are trying. We're giving it a go. We don't get much thanks for it, quite frankly, but we'll keep on doing it. And it might well be that we don't get the thanks or the recognition, although the welcome to you all would always be there. At least not now. And sometimes, at my darker moments, I do think that, are we really so different from maybe those monks in the scriptorium 1,000 years ago, who were also busily preserving the treasures of culture, the treasures of literature, of art, of law, in a world that had similarly forgotten its place, a cultural amnesia, a widespread iconoclasm. And they weren't thanked neither until very, very much later. Maybe we'll look back in future and people will recognise our own part in sowing the seeds of renewal. Thank you.
Excellent.